Hello and welcome to the Cutie Art Crusaders, episode 160 for August 4th, 2015. Wow, 160 episodes in already. My name is Flutterguy317. I am the media manager of the podcast, and today I am joined by...
Bernd, the special guest coordinator, and this week I'll be the editor.
And we're missing some people.
And we're mixing two of our individuals, actually.
Yeah. It's really
just
sad.
you and I today.
I know. It's kind of sad.
So Rainbow Plasma and Atmos Spark are both out.
Yeah, I think Joel's like paintballing or something.
Ooh, fancy.
I know.
Did he take Silver to that?
I don't know. Maybe.
Picture Silver getting pelted by paintball.
Oh,
no.
God.
No, Silver.
That
Sounds fun. I used to paintball a lot.
I've never gone paintballing.
It's a lot of fun.
I know. I really want to, but...
Taking fast-flying plastic objects to your body, impact really hard and pain. It's great stuff.
Yeah. So I've
just
heard.
Like the whole running around and like shooting each other and it being okay in like real life, is like kind of a really cool experience. I used to do it in my backyard a lot with some friends. It was good stuff.
Yeah, you've got like the large yard with a lot of obstacles and stuff.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. We basically obstacles in air quotes. We basically, my friends and I went and pilfered as many pallets as we could from behind like Fred Meyer's and Walmart's and junk.
Yeah.
And so then we just took all those pallets and like nailed them up and put them around in my backyard and used it as cover and junk.
Yeah.
It was good times.
Cool. Plus you have like a chicken coop cage thing, or was it geese?
Oh yeah, the goose cage. That wasn't around when we were playing paintball, but we totally could have used that as a prison.
Yeah. I've played with airsoft before, but it's not the same. So
yeah, it's also like, definitely not the same. I was gonna say it's more dangerous, but it's definitely not more dangerous.
Yeah,
it's just like wear face protection for both.
Yeah. Well, because like paintball, I feel like there's a lot more officialness to it. Like you have official gear, you have official safety stuff, regulations, and whatnot. Yep. And airsoft is just like, oh, it's like little plastic BBs. Like I'll just shoot this around the house, and it's like,
Yeah, but it's some people like to play the airsoft in like the context that you do paintball.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit closer quarters, and then being dumb kids, they don't always wear face protection.
Right.
And so it's like with little BBs in airsoft, like it's a good way to lose an eye. But with paintball, it's a good, if you don't wear the right kind of protection, it's a good way to get a concussion or die.
Yeah.
Because like if a paintball goes in your eye socket, it's going to do a heck of a lot more damage than if a little airsoft BB does.
Yeah.
And so like it's very serious business. So like mask protocol and rules in paintball is very, very strongly enforced.
Yeah.
Because it's a difference between a game and then life or death,
Yeah. It's a very optimistic topic that we started off on today.
Yeah, right?
Hey! Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Yeah, on more fun things, there was a YouTube thingamajigger that you want to talk about, wasn't there?
Yeah, so there's this YouTube channel. It's Rabies Bun, spelled Rabies space BUN. And
is this a new thing?
No, he's been around like for a few years. Maybe 3 years. And he does these like PMVs, but he glitches the audio from the show to like match up with the music. And he recently released one that was Caramel Dancing, and it had the Shia LaBeouf like just do it thing in it. It was fantastic.
I didn't know about the YouTube channel, but I randomly watched this video somehow. It got linked somewhere and I watched it and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's fantastic because he like pokes fun or like parodies a lot of other aspects of PMVs or YT PMVs.
Sure.
Because like he had like text flashing on the screen, like I think at the beginning like there was a watermark that said like unlicensed version or something like that.
Unlicensed version, and then there was like a fancy visuals that was like flashing back and forth.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. You guys should go check it out. It's really cool.
Literally the text fancy visuals.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Shia LaBeouf had he was like had like pony hair and stuff, and so like he had like Fluttershy hair and even had like a little Fluttershy tail, so when he like turns to the side and he's like do it, like mashing his hands together, he has Fluttershy's little tail. And then like he's also dressed up as like Pinkie Pie and like Rarity or something, or I don't remember, Rainbow Dash, like they come on the screen. It's like there's 3 Shia LaBeoufs all dressed as ponies. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like that was such a minor thing too. It's just like randomly in the middle.
Like it's in the title, like Shia LaBeouf, and he's there for like literally 3 seconds in
just
the thing.
Mashing his hands together, flexing and being angry, dressed as a horse.
Just, being Shia.
It's good stuff. Shout out to that. Made us laugh.
Yeah. So you know what's really, really soon?
My birthday?
You're right. Actually, it is. Hey!
But you know what also happens on my birthday?
Is it our panel on your birthday, or is it our panel the day
I don't know, actually. When is our panel? What day is it?
Saturday.
No.
Okay.
My birthday, I believe, is Friday. Actually, God, I don't even know. Hold on. This wasn't planned out.
Oh, no.
August. Yeah, so my birthday's on Friday.
Okay.
And then our panel is on Saturday.
Yeah.
But those days are important because our panel and my birthday also happen to happen at BronyCon.
Yay.
So that's the thing. That's the important word that we're missing. But holy crap, BronyCon happens in literally 7 days from when we're recording this.
Yeah.
And when people are listening to this, it's going to be in 3 days.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like we're all traveling down on Thursday. All of us that are going. Unfortunately, Joel can't make it.
7 days.
Yeah, because he's in Australia and, you know,
Money.
It's expensive. Yeah. But we're all traveling down on Thursday. We're going to be there for the full thing. And then we're coming back on Monday and doing some sort of after activities as well. But the con is going to be amazing. And we hope to see all of you guys there that are going to be able to make it. And you all should go to our panel, which is on Saturday at 4:15 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. in the Hall of the Moon. And we're kind of still in the planning phase. I know it's like really soon, but we have some like outline of what it's going to be like. And at the end, we're going to do a Q&A session, and we have some prizes, and we talked a little bit about them last week. But we got a new prize this week, which is awesome.
Excitement.
I know. We actually have a commission from Assassin Monkey. He's been doing these little chibi pieces, which are really, really adorable. And so he offered to do a commission of one of those. So that's really cool. Thank you, Assassin Monkey.
That's pretty sweet. That's really kind of him.
Mm-hmm.
We love you.
Yeah. So we may end up getting some more prizes. You never know. I may actually like throw in a vector commission and dust off the old Ponyscape. But we'll see. So as far as an episode next week, we are going to be recording our panel, and we probably won't edit it that much, but we'll probably throw that up as our episode next week. And then the following week, since we're all kind of away, I don't think we'll have an episode. But
yeah, we'll probably take a break then.
Yeah.
Because it'll be a bit of a scramble to try to get everything put up and on like YouTube and stuff like by Tuesday and like on the live stream and all that stuff.
Yeah. So we'll see as it gets closer. But yeah. And I think after our panel too, we're going to do a kind of a meet and greet, kind of more personal, kind of like we did last year.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
We want to do a social like event like after the panel, and so like we're gonna stay, and hopefully people can stay and like chat with us, and hopefully people who come out from the artist alley can come and like chat with us if they're stuck there. So like that would be cool. Because like our panel gets done right about when the artist alley closes.
Yeah.
And I also know what is it? The Yogscast crew, the Euro OC Sucks guys. They're doing the Euro OC Sucks podcast. They're doing a social meetup that they invited us to. Yeah. And so like I will be at that. I don't know if they told you guys about it.
It's I heard it's a Royal Rumble actually.
Yeah.
We're fighting them.
John Cena.
I also was talking to Smooth over Skype and agreed that we need to put together a video of that.
Of the John Cena Royal Rumble?
No, like of us fighting them. Like just this big over the top thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I vote to be John Cena.
Okay.
Hand wave.
I will second this motion.
Can't see me.
Right.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're going to BronyCon, hopefully we'll see you there.
Say hi to me.
And without further ado, let's jump into Bernd. What is this?
Bernd. Let's jump into Bernd. Quick. Get on my back.
Theme?
Adventure.
Theme? What does this word mean?
So we're going to do something a little special, a little different this week. And we're going to be doing, I guess it's a theme, but it's a theme, but it's also going to be like a little Berndicational episode, if I can coin that term. So I've done a few of these in the past. Like, I guess the value one is the one I'm most famous for.
Mm-hmm. Or perspective. Perspective was good.
Yeah. So, but those were the ones that you guys humored me on. So we decided to take this opportunity to do another one of those. And so our little educational theme-a-jig we're going to be doing this week is abstraction and abstract art, which is a huge term and a very big, scary word when it comes to sounding educated in the art world. And admittedly, it's something that I still am learning about and coming to grasp, but there's a lot of things that which I have learned from my art history classes and then done a little bit of research online, and I'm going to struggle to try to relate the concept into pony art. So we've gone out of our way to try and find good examples of what is abstraction or examples of abstract art within the brony fandom and some things that people have made. And hopefully it'll be fun and kind of educational for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So,
an edgy-venture, if you will.
Yeah, educational adventure.
Yeah.
So real quick, I just kind of want to start off with some, before we go and dive into the art, I just want to start off with some descriptions of what abstract art is and this concept of abstraction, and also some notions that are very common just within I guess general population, if I can use that term.
Yeah.
I won't say the fandom. I'll just say people in general on your day to day. Normally when people think abstract art or when looking at just abstract anything or just art, no, just when looking at art in general, there's this concept where if it's wonky or different or weird, they'll call it abstract. So if something's minimalistic, or if something's kind of super brightly colorful, or lines are really wavy and wacky, there's this instant go-to man, that's abstract, and it's it's become a word that's synonymous with weird, and it's not quite true. So when a lot of people see abstractionist art, there is the instant reaction that it is weird, because it is, because that's kind of the concept of it. And so that becomes related with anything that kind of is just jarring for someone to look at in specific ways. Where in an art historical context, abstractionism, and I guess that's probably not a word, abstraction and abstract art have this very rich history and notions in which they've been laid out and how they were created to create all this famous stuff. So the big famous name everyone knows when you're talking about abstract art is Picasso. So he's kind of the I guess the face figure or whatever that everyone is oh, that's abstract art, those wonky faces and people with funny noses and eyes and stuff. And that's the go-to. But there's a bunch of really important names like Braque and then Mondrian especially that are these huge forefathers in abstractionism. And then you get into all this hand-in-hand stuff, which we'll get to. So,
well, it's interesting when you bring up Picasso and people are instantly, oh yeah, he's abstract art. You don't really take a minute to kind of think about why it's abstract. You just see something that's wonky and say, oh yeah, that's abstract. But it's kind of more to deal with pulling things out and simplifying the art into a depiction of what you're trying to portray in a way.
Exactly. Because there's this concept of appreciation, right? So that's why everyone takes art appreciation in college, and that's kind of what the class stands for. So some people are just they look at that as a filler class, but if anyone's watching or listening to this, I strongly recommend you go and take art appreciation and pretend to give a darn. Because art appreciation is great for explaining these concepts of why things look the way they do, or what is going on in the artist's head, and why a painting that is just painted absolutely black looks really cool. Yeah. And so there's a lot of paintings that are just it looks like a giant 4x4 foot canvas that's painted pure black that I could spend an entire episode ranting about. Anywho, so abstraction. There's some quick definitions that I just want to talk about before we jump into again to pony art. And so these, admittedly, these are just straight paraphrased from Wikipedia. So, these aren't my own words. I took these from Wikipedia articles because we do super awesome peer research here at the Cutie Art Crusaders.
Yep, it's true.
And so these are just how abstraction is kind of laid out and described in kind of a smart sounding words. That isn't my own jumbled rant
As a
Force
note,
rantery. Go ahead.
Bernd did check the primary source on Wikipedia just to make sure it was good. So
it's true. I did click that little one, and it had a fancy sounding book there with like an author. Yeah, it was there. You can check for yourself. So you can find these on Wikipedia. Anywho, so like when we're talking about abstraction, a quick definition of it is abstraction indicates a departure from reality in depiction of imagery in art. This departure from accurate representation can be slight, partial, or complete. So now that's a fancy way to say that in abstract art, the purpose of it is to venture away from reality. So a realistic depiction. So when you think realistic depiction, think of a photograph, or think of someone who, in a pony art context, is like trying to draw something to where when we look at it, we recognize it as a pony. So when we look at that, we're like, hey, that's Twilight Sparkle, or hey, that's Rainbow Dash. Like, obviously it's not a realistic depiction because there's this gray area because it's a mythological pastel horse. So it can't be an absolutely realistic depiction, but it can be a depiction in which we recognize as something we love, in this case, a pony. So an abstract concept of that is just like a departure away from what is the like very accurate depiction of a horse. Like, what is a horse? It is a bundle of friendship, so on and so forth. So hopefully we'll explain that a little bit more in the future when we start actually looking at art.
Yep.
And then to continue, there's some very other important things about abstraction, and there's this concept of rules that is a very strong basis in abstraction that we'll talk about. And so this fancy, again, paraphrase that I took from Wikipedia is abstraction in its main sense is a conceptual process in which general rules and concepts are derived from the usage and classification of specific examples, principles, or methods. An abstraction, in quotes, is the product of this process. And so again, that is a fancy, wordy way of saying that rule-based method or methods is a very strong feature in abstract art. So like applying rules that cannot be broken when you are illustrating something or portraying it in an abstract sense. And that's like horizontal vertical lines, geometric shapes, or something in which that you apply to your image that, again, we will get to. Please hold your horses. Pun intended. And then sorry, just have something you want to say?
No. I was half-heartedly laughing at you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll take a little bow.
Yeah.
So, and then it's a very important concept, again, that abstraction was inspired by three main forms of art, which is Romanticism, Impressionism, and Expressionism. So this is more just like some art historical stuff. And these forms of art, in a lot of ways, were basically revolts against the camera, and like when the camera was invented in art history. And then and abstraction was it was a product of those three art movements. And again, kind of like this revolt against the notion of photorealism and kind of art through photography, because it was like a lot of artists saw the camera as the death of the artist and the death of art like as a human made form. So like all these crazy things spawned, and maybe we'll touch on that a little later. And let's see. And then there's one final thing that I think we'll mention a little later when we get into when we mention cubism. Yeah. So I'll put a little note here because like I've said way too many fancy concepts, but note that cubism and abstractionism are hand in hand. And if you don't know what cubism is, that's okay. We'll get to it.
Yes.
Okay. So finally, now that we're 20 minutes into the episode, let's bring up our first piece of pony art. Maybe I'll put in some art historical paintings while I was blabbering. I don't know. Here we go.
Some fancy visuals like the rabies bun thing.
Yeah, exactly. So just play that in the background the whole time, Shia LaBeouf. All right. So our first piece of fancy pony abstractionistic artwork is called Florse by Doc Wario. And Doc Wario is a super awesome artist when I'm looking for like examples of what is kind of abstractionist art. And I really, if you're looking for stuff that's kind of more interesting artistically in the pony fandom, interesting is a word in quotes, go to Doc Wario's gallery. He has some really cool stuff that falls more under kind of like expressionism, surrealism, and some kind of fancy word for modernist crazy art that I don't quite understand. But this piece, Florse, which is like a painting that we can tell is a painting of Fluttershy, is a very good starting foothold when we're trying to talk about abstract art. And to kind of explain this concept is like there's a couple things going on here. Like one, it looks wonky and it looks like weird, but it's also like in essence this is just a bunch of vertical and horizontal marks in color and like squares and rectangles that creates what we associate or recognize as Fluttershy, because we can kind of see these like vague hints of, you know, her pink hair and her yellow coat in a horse like shape. But like it kind of looks like a bunch of nonsense in its entirety, I guess, or in essence. Again, I'm going to use that word essence a lot because it's very important to this concept of abstraction. Yeah. But there's rules and stuff applied. So earlier I mentioned that rules are very important. The rule in this painting is that it's only using a square brush. It's only vertical and horizontal shapes, and then there's just colors like placed on top of each other, and it creates what we see as Fluttershy. But it's a great example of what we're trying to convey here.
Yeah.
But anywho, did you have anything you want to say about this? Because like I've been talking a lot. Or did you have anything like you notice about this painting?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention that once again, I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but like our brain is really, really good at processing patterns and pattern recognitions. And that's kind of what makes art work. And that's what makes abstract art work as well, is that you can take this piece of art that's just made up of these squares of color, and like your mind processes it and puts it together, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a pony, that's Fluttershy. Like because you see the pink and the green and the yellow, and you immediately associate it with the only pony that's pink, green, and yellow on the show. And so it's like, okay, you can kind of see where your mind is going with how it processes art, which is really cool. And as the art gets more and more abstract, you kind of realize how your brain works in a way when it tries to look at, you know, we'll eventually
to make sense of what it's seeing.
Yeah, we'll eventually get into like, you know, just the lines and stuff like that. And it's like it's so devolved from the actual pony, but like you can still conceptually like see where it relates to it. Just because of the whole pattern matching thing.
And so that creates a fascinating thing, because it now becomes more about what is painted or what the artist creates. It becomes more about what it represents and less about the thing that they painted, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I sounded like Daffy Duck when I said thing. Quack.
Yeah, I was wondering what was going on there.
But so the reason why this piece is such a great starter is because like we can still tell it's Fluttershy, but it's like it's starting to drift away from a painting of Fluttershy, right? It's starting to come more about Fluttershy's color, and then these horizontal like marks and stuff that Doc Wario stuck to as his rule for making this painting it's become more about that, more about the color than it is the painting of a horse. Mm-hmm. And so like you said, there's still enough in which our brain like associates like, oh man, this is Fluttershy, you know, it's kind of it has her right colors and it's kind of placed in the right spots. Mm-hmm. But like if someone wasn't a fan of My Little Pony, they would look at this and they would go, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So without the appreciation or the knowledge of what a Fluttershy is, or what Fluttershy is, or who Fluttershy is, or what Fluttershy looks like, you're not going to know what the heck this is. It's just going to look like a bunch of jumbled squares with random like colors. Yeah. And that's what you're going to see, right?
So what is a Fluttershy?
A miserable pile of friendship and kindness. But so like that is like the start of abstraction. And so like again, like going back to art history, like abstract art kind of started from this concept of like something that you're drawing or portraying, or just anything in the world that you see, it has an essence that again, I'm using that word essence. It has something about it that we represent with what it is. Or just like how you would draw it, or how you see it, or how you recognize it in your brain. Mm-hmm. And so abstraction was a movement in which to simplify something down to its most pure form. And to do that, you lay out very specific rules that you're painting that simplify something to, again, its essence of what it truly is. So a piece like this is the start of that. It's now taking what you think as Fluttershy is due to its color and where the color is laid out, and then eliminating like its outlines and boundaries and applying a rule of only like horizontal and vertical squares. And then you've now created a more simplified version of Fluttershy, and now we have started our journey of what an abstract art thing is.
If I can go off on a little bit of a tangent,
go for it.
Because I'm a software engineer, and as like Bernd, as you're describing abstractionism and abstract art and whatnot, it's kind of relating back to the whole software engineering or computer science concept of abstracting things from your code, because it's the same kind of concept where you're pulling things out of like, let's say you have this large object or large class, you're pulling things out of it so that you can simplify the underlying class to its purest form, and that's basically the same concept in art. So it's like there's kind of these parallel things going on between different fields, and I don't know how like abstract in the world of art got confused with surreal, but it means the same kind of thing in these other fields as well, which is kind of cool.
Again, like on that topic of surrealism that you mentioned, a lot of people look at something that's surrealist and they'll think it's abstract, and there's some truth there, because you can use the word abstract to represent kind of anything that drifts away from what it was, you know. As it starts to slowly no longer look like a realistic depiction of it, it becomes technically more abstract. In this episode, we're kind of looking at like pure abstract art, or abstractionism, if I can use that term, if it is a term, in a more art historical context, and like within the history of the world, right? So like a more higher appreciation of what abstract art is or whatnot. But surrealism, just as a term, it was kind of pioneered, I think, I could be incorrect, but pioneered by an artist named Salvador Dali, I believe is his name, and he painted what he wanted to be a dream-like landscape. And so the concept of what a dream is, or what like the cerebral mind is what he was very fascinated with. So like when he painted something, he wanted his viewer to look at it and like, wow, this looks like a crazy dream, or like an acid trip or whatnot. But he was more fascinated with dreams, less with drugs. Go ahead.
He's got several famous pieces. The whole melting time,
melting clocks, and there's way more context behind that than I am aware of too, as well. Like the clocks are kind of like symbolic and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode on that at some point.
Oh, that'd be fun. I'd do a lot of research for that one.
But we should move on to the next piece of art.
Yeah, totally. So now we're gonna again move into a different concept of art, and like I was saying earlier, the biggest kind of face for abstract artwork is Picasso. So what is it? Pablo Picasso, I believe is his full name. And so he was very fascinated with a couple other concepts. And so we'll bring up his art here, which, or not his art, excuse me. We're not going to bring up Picasso's art. We're going to bring up a parallel to something that Picasso kind of like similar to what he painted. And it's, again, a pony artwork. And this piece is called The Horror by Detomne. And so now, again, if you're looking for a gallery with more kind of like artsy-fartsy examples of very cool art historical kind of based pony paintings, or like tied in, Detomne is a absolutely fabulous artist for that. He is like an interesting little, I would say, art major fascination person who paints lots and lots of ponies. And he's a fan of our show too, which is like, ooh.
Yeah, he's always in the chat. Hi.
Very, very cool. And so this is a piece by him, and this piece is like great. This piece is like kind of perfect to kind of as like an usher in to talking about Picasso. And so, oh man, there's a lot of things when like, again, this is more like art history, and then we're kind of going towards Picasso. And so when we left off talking about that Fluttershy piece, we were talking kind of about rules and simplification. So there was a period in which Picasso, as an artist, started looking at like kind of this abstract art as a concept. And what he started doing is he started painting like cities, villages, and people especially. And he started simplifying them in very geometric based shapes. And kind of these almost, it looked like random assortment of lines, but they were very sketched out and methodical, and of how he wanted to portray what is a person or what is a thing or a city or buildings. But then he laid them out with lines that which he kind of built like a rule for and like had compositions for. So again, in this piece, it's a painting of a pony, but it's like, it's very, again, it's wonky, and people look at it and go like, wow, this is very weird, but there's a lot of cool concepts that something like this tries to achieve. And so that kind of leads us into this word of cubism. And cubism is a term that a lot of abstract artists were very fascinated with. And cubism, let's see if I had a note for cubism. I do. I'm just going to read this. And it says, it's a note I wrote for myself. A concept abstract artists like Baroque and Picasso were fascinated with was depicting an object or subject from multiple viewpoints. And to see or view an object in the real world from multiple angles, you have to physically walk around it and study it and pick it up or move it. So like if you have, like say you're a pony or something, you like to look at everything about that pony. You have to like walk around the pony or like see multiple like angles, or it's like whatever, like in the show, whatever, or like an object, if you pick it up, you have to like look at it and move it around to see like the fullness of this object. And so to do that, to take that action, it all has like a common factor of like studying something or looking at something, or what is all surfaces of something. And to see that as a person in the real world, it takes time, and it takes viewing something which you like from multiple angles, which you can't do on a 2D surface because it only has one angle. So in a way, to take time to look at something, abstract artists are essentially kind of portraying this concept of time on a 2D surface. And like, that's a very bold notion, but and again, we're kind of relating it into pony art, but simplifying something and kind of drawing it in this creative way that's laid out that Detomine has done. He's showing this pony from multiple angles. And like a lot of people look at that and they kind of scoff at that. Even like I did when I was like first notifying it. And it's like, this is a picture of a pony. And it's not as good as like an art historical, like not to say it's like not a great piece. I think I really like this piece. I think it's awesome, but it's not as a great example as something that, let's say, Picasso would have painted, where like there's this really cool painting of like a violin and another one of like a saxophone or a trumpet or something like that, where he's painting this violin from like multiple angles, like from the side, from the front, from the upside down, from like a 3/4 angle, and all these things, and like he physically pieces this violin into like multiple things and then paints it. But there's rules to his painting, meaning he only uses muted colors. He doesn't use what is the color of a violin. He takes color out of the subject, and so like it's no longer a factor, and it's just these lines of what is, again, to use the word, an essence of a violin. So again, that's very confusing, and I'm struggling to relate this back to this pony artwork, but what we can see in which Detomine has used, where it's kind of breaking these facets of what would be a realistic depiction of this pony, because again, like I mentioned earlier, abstractionism or abstract art is the departure from a realistic depiction. This is an extremely unrealistic depiction because it's done with just lines and geometric shapes. And it also shows this, like, you remember the horror pony, like, oh god, the horror, because like her flowers got stomped on or whatnot. Yeah. We're seeing her eyes from the front view. So like her eyes from the absolute front. So they're just spheres, but yet we're seeing her body, so her torso, from the side profile view. And yet we're seeing her limbs, like her front legs from like kind of a raised view, or almost a side view that is like, doesn't match up to yet anything else. And then we're seeing her mane from two completely different angles as it's laid out. And then we're also seeing her legs from almost all angles at once, because they're broken up and depicted in a way in which it doesn't match up to the body at all. So like, this used to be a pony at some point, but now it's more about like an attempt at illustrating this pony from multiple viewpoints and angles using a system of rules of just using these lines and colors in between them. Yeah. And so
it's
go ahead.
Sorry. It's also kind of this concept of illustrating this pony, or representation of this pony, through time. So or through space, really. So the artist, if this was an actual like pony model, would be walking around, and you know, the eyes would only be from the front view, and then like he would basically sketch in like different pieces of the pony as he's walking around, and not like take just, you know, a standard 3D portrait that you would see, like perfect shading and everything like that. It's a representation, a 2D representation of that angle of the pony, but like all different angles, which is really neat.
Those are awesome points. The reason why I liked this artwork by Detomine the Horror so much is because like it very much reminds me of a Picasso drawing. Like even looking at it in like this thumbnail when it's very small, it kind of looks like what it almost is a pony, you know, like when it's kind of smaller, it looks like a pony kind of from the front with these wide eyes and like what I recognize as a pony body and limbs and things like that. But it's tackling these very advanced concepts that someone like Picasso would have used in something that he would have like wanted to paint or something like that. And so another really great example is a painting called Derp by Detomine, which is a painting of Derpy. And again, it is using this concept of applying rules to a painting and like using very like clean geometric shapes and lines, but yet showing Derpy from like multiple angles and facets on a 2D surface with a limited color palette and again limited lines, to where it becomes much less about the fact that it is Derpy and it becomes much more about showing multiple angles of what Derpy would look like, or what the essence of Derpy again. I'm going to use that term a lot again. I'm going to change it a lot.
Abstract is a lot about essence.
Yeah,
really.
Because that's the concept of abstraction, is it's capturing the essence of something. Like it's very true to its definition. Like that's like the big golden question in abstract art. Like, what is something's essence? The essence of a thing, of a person, of an object, of something you could possibly represent as an artist, capturing it in its entirety, in its truest form. What does that mean?
As you don your beret and...
yeah, we will eventually go down this rabbit hole of what is something's essence.
Yeah.
And it gets pretty crazy.
Yes.
But this is, again, it's a very cool example. We can see Derpy's wing from the underside. We can see Derpy's wing from the front and from the side. We can see her legs from the side and from the back. And then we can see her face from the front, but yet it's just depicted by a circle. And then her nose is almost at two different angles, and her eyes are derped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very cute, very creative, and the colors are done very cute and creatively and simplified as well. You'll notice that the colors are in just like rectangles and diamonds.
Yeah.
So like even the colors are simplified again to just simple geometric shapes with some round lines breaking them up.
Yeah. I also like the fact that the piece is entirely composed of either these curves of similar curvature or straight lines. There's not really any like change in the way that he's doing these outlines. So it does kind of follow that rule system there. Like it's very well laid out.
So that's a great usher into this concept of geometric shapes, which is very closely tied to rules. So the next piece that we're going to put on the screen for you is called Hate by Adawan. And this is a very kind of cubist-inspired and abstract, geometric shape-inspired work of art, which has kind of a gory negative a little bit, but I think it's still okay for our show, or narrative, excuse me, not negative. And going back to Baroque and Picasso, there was a time where they kind of started pioneering this whole abstract art thing. I'll put thing in a very general term. And they would paint these like houses and different things in the city in which they lived, which I think is somewhere in France, I believe.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. Don't want to go look it up on Wikipedia. But they're basically painting these buildings. And the rule that they laid out for themselves is that they only drew them with geometric shapes. And they did this by showing like different faces of these houses, but simplifying them into rectangles, triangles, rhombuses, diamonds, things with straight edges and lines, no organic lines. So literally just like pure edged shapes. And they sometimes blurred lines or didn't draw the ends of them, or they didn't make sense, or houses joined other houses' faces, and it became a very muddled mixture of, again, this essence of just the shapes of a landscape. And it was, again, it was that same concept we were talking about before. It was a travel away from the depiction of something, away from a realistic depiction, and then moving towards an essence of something in its abstract form, like with rules based for it, and not concerned about the realistic depiction of it, but more so these mental concepts of what we associate with it, almost, which is, again, a very bold notion.
Yeah.
But you can see parts of that in this piece, and I really like this piece. I like the colors a lot, with this like blue and red color composition. And we have a sea pony drifting down through ice or through water. It's very subjective, but we can tell that it's water because it's blue and there's a sea pony. But it's still very, very far away from what is like a realistic depiction of it. And it's only done with shapes and this notion of like shapes. And there's some very cool things going on the right-hand side, the lower right. If you look at those shapes in there, there's some lines that will stop and then get muddled together with this limited color palette. And like, that's an awesome touch that like you could see in some like art historical things, where it's like not everything is kind of laid and connected, and some lines don't like form into each other, and it creates this very interesting flow between this very limited color palette and the limited shapes that you can use to represent this thing.
It's almost like impossible shapes, like an MC Escher kind of thing, where these shapes are overlapping each other, but and you can only see that like if you look at that specific overlap. But as you look at the whole thing, it kind of bends your mind a little bit, because it shouldn't really be possible.
Exactly. And like, that's kind of perfect. That's what abstract art like wants to do and is set out to do. And so there's another piece that is closely related to this, again by the same artist. And we featured it before. I don't think I was on this episode, but it's called Destruction. And it's of Twilight's library after it was destroyed, and it's a little bit more advanced in the kind of shapes it uses, and it's more realistic in its depiction of what it is, because we can very easily tell that it's Twilight's library, but it still has this notions of geometric shapes to lay out everything, no organic shapes, just straight edged lines to do something. And so it's not quite as abstract on like a scale as the one we just looked at, because it's more closely related to what is the depiction of this library, or like a realistic depiction of it, but it's still using these notions of things can only be laid out with geometric shapes. So there's a rule applied to it to simplify it, which is the purpose of the rule, right? To simplify something, because you're no longer trying to do it very accurately. You're doing it with shapes. So simplifying it.
Kind of on that note, like there are varying degrees of abstraction, and like cubism and I guess geometric shapeism
yeah, sure,
is like, it's also has a sliding scale. So like this piece right here, it follows a lot of the rules of like cubism, geometric shapes and stuff like that, but it's more closely tied to like something that's tangible, something that you can take a look at and immediately recognize as the library, whereas the previous piece is a lot more quote unquote abstract, because you look at it and it takes you a little while to realize that it's a pony, because it's so far removed from like actually looking like a pony.
Exactly. And so like, that is a fabulous segue into our last segment of our abstract art journey, which is when you have a thing, or a pony in this case, and it no longer is a thing. It becomes something else. It becomes something's true essence, because it no longer visually represents or looks like that said thing, in quotes. So the piece that we're going to bring up now is a that I really like, is called Rarity and Jewels 1 by Doc Wario. And in this piece, it is literally just colors and jewels. Like, that's it. It's just colors and jewels. But yet, in its purpose, it's meant to represent rarity, and it's just kind of... I felt like it was a good example, because when you look at this piece, you can't even tell rarity, You can't even think like, oh, this is rarity, but it's just like, rarity's kind of purpose as a character is her fascination with jewels and other things. So in this piece, you can see almost very finely in like a subjective matter almost of like what rarity is, or like maybe where rarity could be, but it's broken up and into these jewel-like shapes. So it's no longer about what rarity looks like, it's more about Rarity's, again, her essence, or what she stands for. And so, like, I can see a little bit of what in my mind, you know, I can almost see like a representation of Rarity because there's colors that are similar to her. So in the bottom part of the canvas, there's these kind of like white colors behind the jewels. And then in the middle part of the canvas, there's this purple area, which we know is the color of her mane. And so this isn't like true simplification in abstraction, but it's an example of when it's the painting's no longer about like the pony. It's no longer about looking like Rarity, but yet it's still about Rarity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's still a representation of her character, but it's no longer in the form of a pony that you can distinctly recognize as a pony.
Exactly. So, like, again, this may be a little confusing, so let's move on to something else. I just really like that example. And so now we'll move on to a art piece called Plaid Pony Number 1 Rainbow Dash, which is a hand-painted piece of traditional artwork, which is, again, like, fabulous. It's always awesome to see traditional things. And so now this is, again, moving closer to that pure form of abstraction where it's no longer a pony, and now it's just the colors of a pony. So there is, again, this artistic journey by this individual named Pete Mondrian, I believe is his name. And he went on this journey by an easy example is he started painting a tree. And it was literally just a tree. And he simplified this tree into some geometric shapes and lines, but it still kind of looked like a tree. But he muted the colors, and it was kind of grayish and had some blues. You could see that it was kind of like a tree. And then as he continued to paint it, he painted it again, and it became more simplified with more geometric lines that were, again, straighter, a little bit more edgy. The color palette dulled even further, so it was more simplified. And it became it still looked like a tree, but a little bit less. And then he painted it again, and it looked even less like a tree. It had even less colors, and it was just kind of a jumble of lines to where you could barely tell it was a tree. And then he painted it again with even harsher rules, where it was only painted with horizontal and vertical lines. And so it no longer was the color of a tree. It was just a jumble of like horizontal and vertical lines that almost looked like this kind of mushroom cloud, but it spawned from what used to be a tree, and now it no longer became a representation of a tree, but purely just the essence of what was a tree. And so, like, again, that's kind of a very confusing concept, but this piece has a parallel to that. So the piece we're looking at right now with Rainbow Dash, because like it started as Rainbow Dash and it's inspired by her colors, but now it's purely just horizontal and vertical lines that interact in a way that are Rainbow Dash, or from her. Yeah. So it's the colors of her tail and her mane, and then the background base is her coat color, and then you have white and black, the colors in her eye. And it's really just it's a great example. Do you have anything you wanted to say about it before we move on to another one?
No, I mean, I think you hit all the key points. It's interesting, like, that there are kind of like these thicker lines on the outside to represent either her tail or her mane, and then there's the thinner lines of the same color on the inside to probably represent the other part of her, either tail or mane. But yeah, it's really just all about the colors, and you can take a look at this piece, and your mind will reach the conclusion that is Rainbow Dash because of the colors and because of their interactions. But you're not going to look at that and see a pony right away.
So what's awesome is the artist actually put a lot of thought into this. So there's like the color, like you just said, there's like the colors of her tail or something, which would be like the outside lines, and the colors of her mane on the inside lines. But even when you get to the very center, her eye is still represented. Mm-hmm. So you have the magenta that her eye is, and then you have the two colors for her eye shines in the middle on the right-hand side, that's slightly different shades of pink, which are the two different shades in her eye. And then you have two squares of white, which are her eye shines. Yeah. So every little facet of her colors are worked into this painting. So if you start from the center of Rainbow Dash's eye, you have black, and then you have the two eye shines. Her which are the two pinks, or the the white eye shines, and then the things in her eye color, the two shines
the
there
and stuff,
and then her magenta eyes, and then the white around her eye, and then the colors of her mane, and then the colors of her tail, and then all on a background of what is her coat.
Yep.
So it's like, this is a great representation of the essence of Rainbow Dash. This is its purpose, and it doesn't look like Rainbow Dash. It's squares. So like, this is like a great abstract piece of the travel away from what is a Rainbow Dash, right? Like this, like we've gone there. We've hit the abstraction. But the kicker is, you can get more simplified than this.
Yes.
And so that's why we tie back to Mondrian, because he was simplifying that tree to where it was just horizontal and vertical shapes. And then he entered this concept of absolute pure abstraction. What is something at its most pure form? What is anything in a visual representation of its purest form? And like, I'm doing like a holy thing, like I look like I'm praying when I say that, because like Mondrian basically had a religion about what he believed was something's true essence. And was he a bit of a
dude was crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna try to say wildcard or something. He was nuts.
Yeah.
Anywho, so our next piece is a piece that I really enjoy. It's called, which is a great example of what I'm talking about, and it's funny in a couple ways. And it's called De Sigil Princess Luna. And so sigilified, I guess, I think it's the term for this absolute pure essence, but I don't know, admittedly I don't know the term. But anywho, this is a pure essence of a pony. This is an abstract horse to its most pure, like, distilled essence. So in this piece, it is literally just horizontal and vertical lines placed in a square composition with a white background, and then it's the four colors of Luna, just the colors of her coat and her eyes, and that's it. And so Mondrian went through this phase and phases throughout the duration of his life and his journey as an artist, and eventually he reached this concept where the most pure abstract essence of something is only horizontal and vertical lines with primary colors being on the artist primary color spectrum, which is red, green, and blue. And so to paint an pure abstract artwork, you have to only have horizontal and vertical lines with red, yellow, and blue inside of them, placed in a harmonious composition. And this was his religion. This is what he lived by. This is what he lived and breathed by. And so to give you an example of how strongly he felt about this abstract notion, is he had a friend named, what was his name? His name was Theo van Doesburg, or Duisburg. I don't know how to correctly say it, but Doesburg is the incorrect pronunciation. And it was a very good friend of him, and he was around Pete Mondrian in the area of his life where he started painting this, what is like the pure essence of abstraction, and they were good friends, and they kind of bounced off of like theoretical ideas and talked to each other, and then kind of built this concept of what is something's pure essence. And Pete Mondrian absolutely believed it was only horizontal and vertical lines, and like that's how you could grasp something at its purest form. But Van Doesburg had this concept where he slightly disagreed, where he felt like diagonal lines carried a very importance into something's essence. And
I think
so there was what's that?
I think in the Wikipedia article it was mentioned that like he liked the motion portrayed by diagonal lines because it could add something to the essence of a thing, to give it some sort of motion, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, like, because we know from earlier episodes and stuff in art that diagonal lines create motion. They create action in a lot of ways that our brain associates with motion and action. Despite the fact, like, in its most simple bit, if you have a horizontal or a diagonal plane, something will roll down it. But regardless of what they believed, the point is, Van Doesburg, he ended up making a painting of a like very pure form of abstraction, but he used vertical lines. So he made a painting where he had vertical black lines on a white background and then filled them with red, blue, and yellow. And I guess in Wikipedia it says there's some disagreement in historical context and between art historians. But my art teacher was very fond on the belief that at this time, when he made that, Pete Mondrian wanted nothing more to do with him. He like absolutely stopped talking with him, no longer like was friends with this guy, like exnated him from his life because he broke the religion of what is the most purest form of something, and so like they were no longer friends. And like that to break your like absolutely like all your bounds with someone purely because they made a painting differently than you did is like that kind of lays out how strongly he felt about this concept. So which makes this piece of pony art very funny to me because it's literal heresy in Pete Mondrian's eyes because it's using the colors of Luna and not the primary colors. So I kind of giggle when I think about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're having fun here. We're comparing extremely art historical context artwork to pony fan artwork on the internet, and it's like I get a chuckle out of it anyway. So I hope other people do too.
Yeah. So speaking of things that would probably not fly with Mondrian, we have our last piece, which is called Composition 2 in Twilight by a Brony account. And this is kind of meant to be a parody of Mondrian's Composition 2 piece, which is the one of the ones that he painted, which is kind of a pure abstraction with red, blue, and yellow. But in this piece, obviously, we're using Twilight's colors, so it's not the primary colors. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Heresy! No. Horses see! Kill me.
Yeah, so, I mean, once again, it's like kind of boiling Twilight down to her purest form in the terms of like what color she's composed of.
Her essence.
Yeah.
Essence of Twilight. Composition 2.
So I mean, I guess there's not really much more that can be said that we haven't said already.
Right.
But
I mean,
yeah.
It's like, I guess to kind of wrap up, like abstraction and abstract art, it's in an art historical sense was quite literally a journey down this wormhole or rabbit hole of like of the struggle of representing something in its purest form, and it was spawned by a lot of other art movements. Mm-hmm. And the artists obviously had like a lot of inspiration when you're talking about those actual art historical artists. And so like Picasso looked at like African masks and people. That's why like you get the people in their funny shapes. But there's so much to it that the one thing I wanted to accomplish in this episode was to kind of lay out what the concepts of abstract art and abstraction were. Mm-hmm. So to kind of prevent the notion of saying like, oh, that's weird or that's wonky. It's abstract because I don't understand it. And so there's an understanding that comes with abstraction or the simplification of something that's a lot more rich than I don't understand this, so it's abstract, right? Yeah, yeah. And so that's what I don't want. I don't want people to look at something and go like, man, I don't understand this at all. Like, because art, the appreciation of it is attempting to understand it. It's attempting to gain the appreciation of it. So in art museums, you can walk in and you can appreciate everything in there. You just have to have the knowledge about it. But unfortunately, a lot of painting and like painting museums, they don't lay out the appreciation for you. They don't spell out why you should appreciate it because you need the knowledge and the education of why you should, or else it's literally just a thing that you have no care for.
Yeah.
So I hope that this finding some examples of little pony art helped our reviewers gain a little bit of appreciation of abstraction and abstract art.
Yeah, and I think like if you look at a piece of art, like whether it's pony art or art in a museum of some sort, or maybe it's pony art in the Traveling Pony Museum, that's kind of more on the abstract side. You can take a look at it and you can see kind of where the artist is coming from and like maybe what kind of subset or how abstract it is, just based on like whether it you can actually see the representation of the pony figure, like physically, or whether it's like, just some random lines that, just kind of boil down to what in essence is this particular pony. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of really cool when you think about it. And like coming into this episode, I had no idea like that it was this deep of a concept either. So yeah.
Hooray!
Yay!
Right?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we are kind of running up on time. So thank you so much, Bernd, for this very edutainment episode.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah. It was very, very good. And I hope that you guys all kind of learned something as well, maybe.
Yep.
So we don't have any questions, obviously, because we're kind of running up on time. Once again, next week, we will be releasing the panel from BronyCon. And again, if you're going to BronyCon, you should go to the panel because it's going to be awesome and we will have prizes. And then, yeah, I think that's basically it.
Sweet deal.
Yeah, and we will be on Twitter while we're at the con. So, feel free to tweet at us and we'll possibly tweet back at you, maybe.
Yeah, if you want to hit any of us up at BronyCon, Twitter is the place to do it. That is the place we'll check, and that's the place that goes to our phones.
Yes. Yeah, and I guess without further ado, thank you guys for watching this most educational adventure. Whether or not you're on Picardo or on YouTube, we love you all the same. My name is FlutterGuy317.
My name's Brenda1.
And we totally forgot the plugs. So you know where to hit us up. If not, they're in the description of the video. And we'll see you guys next week.
Later, guys.
Bye.